Welcome to an interview asking the question, who am I? So with me in studio today, I have someone that I want you to get to know. And let me ask you your name.
Oh, my name? Well, depends which one. No, I was named Anjela.
Okay.
Anjela Patrick is my birth name. Which is actually a brilliant name to give to me, because I feel as though God has commissioned me to be a messenger, and that's what an angel is, right?
Yeah. That's right.
But my stage name, Anjela Church.
Okay.
Anjela Church, the poet, is what all my social media handles are gonna be. Mm-hmm. Anjela Church is my chosen name, because I feel that Anjela Church is very relevant to my journey, and we'll get into that. But yeah.
So it's relevant to your journey, Anjela Church. And so, Anjela, I suppose instead of ending up with this question, let me throw it up front. What do you want people to know? About Anjela Church? Who is she? Where did she come from? How did she evolve from Anjela Patrick into Anjela Church?
You got like 12 questions.
So we're throwing them at you. The floor is yours. Let's go.
Oh, geez. That's a lot. That's a lot. What do I want people to know? And I think that'll just thread through everything.
Yeah.
I want people to know that each and every person that exists on the earth and has a consciousness is valuable to God.
Okay. Got it.
Equally. And I want that to really resonate, because there's different levels to understanding that, and as I mature, as I go through my journey, I'm reaching deeper and deeper levels of understanding exactly what it means to be worth sacrifice, to be worth not just any sacrifice, but the sacrifice of a son. To be worth the attention of a deity, to be, you know what I mean? That's not taught enough alongside being taught about God.
Okay. And so hold on. I know I asked a million questions before, but I want to zero in on the God thing, because you said initially messenger, which talks about God. Now we talk about deity. And how, the attention of the deity. So obviously your upbringing has a whole lot to do with God.
I mean, 100%. 100%. I would have not been brought up if it weren't for God. I'd be gone. That would be.
You probably wouldn't have existed.
I wouldn't have existed if it weren't for God.
Right.
Yeah. So typical thing as far as grew up in the church. Christian, Protestant, conservative religion, and I can relate to any conservative religion. Honestly.
Sure.
We're all kind of taught self-will under the guise of God's will. And so it's something that the journey. I mean, once you start pursuing God will shed anything that needs to be shed, and you'll hold on more to what needs to be held on to. But I grew up in the church. Of course, my father is a minister. But it's so much deeper than that. It's having a God-fearing family line. I had a family Zoom chat, because now we can't have too many people in the room at the same time. And it was my aunt's birthday, and literally it was over 20 of us on the Zoom chat.
Wow.
And my aunt got to praising God.
Hallelujah time.
Because during this time of crisis, our family is like, I'm not going to talk a lot about the virus, what I mean? Not that it gives it any more power or less. It has no life, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's something that has to be acknowledged. Everything in your journey has to be acknowledged. There's no avoidance. There's no escapism.
And there is, and for everything there is a reason and a season.
For everything there is a reason and a season. You know what I mean?
Nothing is just happenstance or came along. And the reason why you are here at this time doing the art form that you do is not a coincidence.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. There's not a single moment of my life that's been a coincidence. Sometimes I think I'm just skating through life, and then hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
Yeah, man. So we were on that call, and we just acknowledged the fact that this virus literally started to rip through our family a bit. One person in the hospital right after the next, and every single one was released.
Wow.
Every single one is alive. And so my aunt, who was one of the ones that got sick, luckily she wasn't hospitalized, but she was sick for a while. When she acknowledged, you know what, I've come to this birthday, and we're all here.
Yeah.
She just started praising God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's very, very real. Like, religion aside, the relationship that my bloodline has with God is something that I can't neglect.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I suppose that's what speaks to your name.
Yeah.
Angie Church.
Angie Church. Literally. You know, because that's one of the big things that I say when I introduce the name Anjela Church is that the first name is what we're called. The last name is what you carry.
Oh, beautiful.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so your last name speaks to where you come from. And so although, you know, Patrick is my bloodline, Church is my journey.
I was going to say, it's more or less your bloodline too.
You know, it's my bloodline too. You know what I mean? So many ministers, so many musicians. I'm a musician, everything like that. And so it's not about I'm walking around representing any particular church. Yeah. But I want to remind myself, to remind anyone who speaks my name, hey, there's a whole journey that goes with Anjela.
Right. So Angie, let's now look at your art form.
Yeah.
What would you call it?
Spoken word.
Spoken word. Simply that.
Simply that.
So if someone were to say, Anjela Church, a spoken word artist, would they have just described you?
Yeah.
That would have described you.
Yeah, and it's more, those of us who do spoken word, we refer to ourselves as poets.
Right.
Because, of course, it's a version of poetry. Rappers consider themselves poets too, but it's a version of poetry. Right. The difference between your average poetry and spoken word has to do with vulnerability. It has to do with speaking candidly about taboo subjects, about your journey in the most gully and relatable way. It came out of the hood. It came out of the same place that hip hop came out of.
So how did you know that my next question was going to be related to the difference between?
No, because it's.
How did you know that?
Well, first of all, I'm a telepath. No, I didn't know that was your next, but it's something that just kind of jumped out at me because, you know, you will see Anjela Church, the poet. Yeah. But the reason that I can say spoken word describes who I am as an artist is because when you say you're a poet, what type of poetry you do? You say spoken word and it speaks to a very particular type of poetry. It speaks to poetry that comes from my soul. Yes. You're going to hear me talk about things like my struggle with faith. Yeah. Things like all of my struggles. I have a list of struggles and they're all listed in there. It's cathartic. Yes. To come out of a place where, especially in my upbringing, we had to keep everything very close to us. You know, and we're taught, you know, it's be careful who you trust and things like that. Yeah. Whenever you're the family of a public figure, it's very, very difficult to break out of that. There's a difference between privacy and secretiveness. Yes. Yeah. Privacy is needed. Yeah. It gives peace. Yeah. Secrets? Yeah. There's no peace. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so for me, like every part of the process, when I'm revealing how real I am, I'm reminding myself how real I am. And it's a humility that comes with it. Everything in my journey I talk about. I talk about substance abuse. I talk about relationships and everything that comes with relationships, particularly mine, which are usually turbulent. So, you know what I mean? So stay tuned. Everybody's into reality TV. Well, reality is all in spoken word.
Yeah. And hold on a second. I listened to your piece before I came into the interview because I wanted to make sure. It was one where you talked a lot about where you are. There was music to it, instrumental. I can't remember the name of it now. I'm trying to remember it. It's AAXIOM.
Everyone Has a Price.
Everyone Has a Price.
Per Axiom.
That particular poem, and I actually played it on my radio show, and I had about 6 or 7, I should say, not everybody, because there's about a few hundred listening, but the 6 or 7 that commented. First of all, they were intrigued at what you got out of just one line. Yeah. Everyone has a price.
Everyone has a price.
And then they jumped. Then the bass line on the thing. One young person commented that the bass line drove.
It slaps.
It drove the thing. Now that's not ordinary spoken word. There is more to, and I'm saying that because I think in order for you to be authentic, you need to have a niche that is different. I mean, a million people out there doing spoken word.
Sure.
So tell me, what drove that? Because that was powerful.
Yeah. So, as I said, I'm a musician. Not just a musician. I make instrumentals. I make music. And so I've made tracks for a lot of. My brother and I run a company called Passionnetpro Productions.
Sure.
And so we help out a lot of up-and-coming artists. And so we produce music together and things like that. And so one of the loves that I have is music. I'm the type of person, I like putting everything I have and everything I am into what I do.
Right.
And so when I thought about putting together a poetry project, a poetry album, the idea of just hearing myself talk for 30 minutes didn't seem that appealing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it.
No matter how captivating a poem is, if you want to listen through it, there has to be a flow. And so, man, I get happy when I make beats.
Yeah.
I get happy when I make beats. You know what I mean? The bass line, so that one in particular, because it comes in a little bit into Everyone Has a Price, and then it drops.
Yeah, and then it drops. And it was surprising because I didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate the bass line. But when it dropped, it's almost like the whole music, the whole poetry, everything came alive. And it was just like, wow, everyone really has a price.
And that's a part of the process. So the music isn't just a cute beat. It tells a story while I'm telling the story.
Sure.
You hear a lot of my poetry tells stories. There's different styles of spoken word. I like telling stories, and so there's a part in there where I go, this age-old domino effect, and it kind of trickles down. The sound of like dominoes falling down. Yeah. And so the project, especially that one, I had a lot of fun making that one. But
and as I was listening to it, I'm thinking, okay, this is different. This is different. So now it begs me to ask this question, and that is your inspiration. Who's inspired you? Where did this whole genre, this type? It sounds a little bit preachy.
Yeah.
In some of the poems.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it sounds very urban and secular. And I'm looking for the God in it.
You don't have to look too far. If you have to look too far, are you in tune with your own journey? You know what I mean?
So let me do the interview. Thank you very much. Okay, so help me now. Help me.
Yeah. Man, my inspiration. So, I mean, I've been on a journey. There's so many different. I've always loved writing. I do creative writing,
sure.
And when I was a little hoodlum, I was doing rapping. So a lot of it, I may end up rapping again. Who knows? But my inspiration, it comes directly from my journey. There's some artists that have inspired my journey. One of them is Genetics, Ezekiel, Jackie Hill Perry, the whole PIA, Poets in Autumn.
I can see that.
Yeah. And so, but before they were Poets in Autumn, before they are who they are now, there was a Passion for Christ movement that came out of Southern California. And they have a slew of spoken word artists because they're young people that grew up, not some of them of the streets, but grew up in culture.
Yeah.
the idea that we don't assume parts of our culture that we grew up among, you know what I mean, is false.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
It's absolutely false. And so the influences come from, there's music that I like. That's how I have a bass line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that comes with my journey. So I transformed from doing little raps and stuff like that into diving in deeper. What do I have deeper in me? I like to describe art. In every artist, there's an art well that you dip into.
I like that.
And so it's like all these different things, my experiences, what I see, what I hear, who I talk to, all fills this art well. And then what I draw out of it in the moment, you know.
And what's interesting is that means at different times you draw different things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not all the same.
Exactly.
Wherever you are, wherever you're moving towards, there is something you can pull out.
Yeah.
And then drop it, and then maybe something totally different. You know, so
exactly.
It may be a bass line today, but then tomorrow it could be an acoustic.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Which is great. An art well.
An art well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think I need to look for mine somewhere along the line. As far as spoken word is concerned, and how are you able? You know, and I'm asking this because I don't get the whole idea of how someone could rhyme their story. Or they could be rhythm to their story. In other words, if I were to tell my story, I would just tell the story. But there is something about spoken word where the emphasis is that does something to the listener.
Yeah.
How does that happen, man?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. It's mainly because there's some people who try to replicate it. And you can always tell a person who is true and cultured in spoken word, and a person who thinks it's nice and tries to do it, because a lot of my friends will attest to this. It's just the way I speak.
Yeah.
It's just the way that I speak. And I think, like, growing up, being a preacher's kid, being the preacher's kid, not just, like, bloodline, but being on stage, I can be a whole program if I need to, you know, that kind of thing. And I've had to be a whole program, you know what I mean, running from the keyboard, running to the there were times where I did a lot of, like, speaking, preaching, things like that. My father is a storyteller when he speaks. And so a lot of the emphasis and what it did, I really honed in on that. When I'm sitting in the congregation or in an audience, and I'm watching the effects that all the intonation and inflections have, and I'm like, okay, this is how I get this effect. This is how I get that effect. And so you hear everyone has a price. Dun, dun, dun. You know what I mean? Because you drop the line. And so for me, it all comes together because I experience. Yeah. I just have experience speaking and experience getting to know people.
Angie, so the message you want the world to hear. What is that message? If you were to put it in a nutshell, and I know it will differ from poem to poem, from situation to situation, but what is the overall message you want people to know when they hear Angie Church do spoken word?
Besides what I've already talked about, you know, God seeing everyone as valuable, artists are valuable. And I have to make that statement because a lot of times people don't see the relevance or value of art until they can monetize it. Right. Till the artist is dead, they can take their stuff and they can put a price tag on it. They don't appreciate the artist while they're alive. See the way that, you know, Edgar Allan Poe was treated, the way that Shakespeare was treated. And now they hold him up like he wrote the Bible.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? And so I want artists to know that we are valuable. Most artists starting out have a hard time even charging for their work. Right. Because they don't see themselves as valuable. Right. They don't see themselves as skilled workers. Mm-hmm. They go to the same institutions. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I went to La Sierra University. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The same way as some great doctors went to La Sierra University. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Taught by the same professors. Paid the same $1 million it costs to go to La Sierra University.
Yeah, hello.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And as an artist, I'm valuable, and we're valuable because we record history. We are the recorders of time.
I love it.
We preserve culture. Mm-hmm. Whenever a conquest was made. Mm-hmm. And you capture, and what are the first thing they do? They destroy the art. Yeah. They capture the art. Yeah. They take it away. Yeah. Because it tells their story. Yeah. The reason that a lot of people who are enslaved, they don't know their story is because their art was taken. Yeah. The reason that we know what slavery was like and the Underground Railroad is because of music. Yeah. Because of the songs that they sang.
They sang. That's true. That's true. So the art form. Yeah. The art form now, and I love what you said. The art form literally is more than just art. Yeah. And I use that strangely. But it's more than just art. Yeah. So it's history. Mm-hmm. It's geography. Mm-hmm. In many cases, it's mathematics. Yeah. It is science. Mm-hmm. Because when I listen to spoken word, particularly the couple of your pieces I listened to today, in it I found all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, how does a spoken word artist remain relevant? You know, where they're picking up here. We got the COVID thing going on right now in our society. How on earth do you remain relevant and not repetitive?
Yeah, so some people are repetitive. Yes. You know what I mean? But some people are very repetitive because they're not in tune with what's going on. Sure. If you look at my project, Parts of Her, it closes off with a piece. Mm-hmm. It was written in 2016, and there was a big thing, Colin Kaepernick, a big movement against the system, against the criminal justice system that's oppressing and directly affecting particularly people of color, and has been for a long time. And so I made sure that, of course, I talk about myself and I talk about my journey, but I'm living here in the world. I'm a black woman living with two brothers that are black men who have 2 sons each. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they're going to be raising them in this system. And my heart goes out to every single one who's affected by that, because I'm affected by it. I'm a part of it. And in the same way, like, that was 2016, and a big, massive thing in 2016 was talked about that. Yeah. And the Black Lives Matter, the whole world chimed into Black Lives Matter. I'm here in London, and they're talking about today Black Lives Matter, even in 2020. And so now, we're in one of the biggest historical moments ever recorded. Yeah. Yeah. With the coronavirus, with COVID-19. Yeah. Yeah. There's been plagues of old. In the Bible, Psalms 91, I think, was written during a plague. Yeah, plague. He keeps talking about, you know what I mean, I'm not going to fear the disease. And we call on Psalms 91 now. Yes. The promises of God. Yeah. But there's no way that we can avoid or escape what's going on in our world. Yeah. There's no way we can consider ourselves too holy to talk about what's going on outside these walls. There's a movement that I follow on Instagram that literally there's a man who's interviewing people who are living on the streets right now during a pandemic. Wow. And he's a photographer. Wow. And so he has a very, like, great pictures of them, and posts their picture and then posts their story. This is this person. This is their name. This is how they ended up on the streets. And they're living there with their families now during this time. And we're talking about stay home, and we're terrified, and we're buying all these things to sanitize, and these people.
Where is home?
Where is home? Yeah. Where do they stay?
And maybe home is in their story.
Home is in their story.
Maybe the fact that that's their security. So, you know, the photographer asking the question, and then their response to the question. Yeah. And now it brings me to your art form. Yeah. And that is, as you tell stories. Yeah. of other people's, of your own, of situations. I have a question, and the question is, at what point do you say that I must become an activist? or is it a case of just telling the story because it's a story? I mean, and you talked about soul to begin with.
Yeah.
Can you detach yourself from injustice? Because I feel like spoken word artists are people that are fighting for something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Definitely. So because my message is fighting for the artist, I will also say right now the art community has been hit very hard by what's going on with COVID-19. One day, they had a whole schedule of gigs and concerts and shoots and exhibitions scheduled for the entire year. Yeah. The next day, they were all shut down.
Yeah, we're gone.
You know what I mean? These are people that, you know, and right now we're on the technology age, so everyone jumps on Zoom and everyone does that. Literally, you would have none of these visuals if it weren't for artists.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true.
Yet their commissions have halted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so as far as, you know, I always want to shed light on the artist community because there's a whole lot of different communities that don't get light. And we only get appreciated, you know, one in a billion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
1 in a million.
1 in a million. 1 in a million. But I understand what you're saying about being appreciated. I think artists particularly are it's almost like the world can do without them.
They think they can.
But at the same time, now I'm looking at the subscriptions of Netflix, looking at all this stuff going through the roof. Everyone wants something new, something different to entertain them. And now I heard a comment as when Lady Gaga is doing her thing now. Yesterday they did the whole recording thing of all the, and then the question was asked, and it's a real question, and that is, what would we do without artists? And does that mean they are essential workers?
Oh, come on.
and we have to say yes.
Yeah.
Because our sanity depends on it.
Yeah.
You know, particularly in this lockdown situation, our sanity depends on it. Angie, as we conclude or come to the end of our interview together, what would you say to someone who is about to go online, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, and click on Anjela's Church's videos, spoken word pieces? Before they open it, what would you say to them?
Shed your expectations.
I like that.
Yeah. Before a conversation with me. Before a conversation with me, shed your expectations. Yeah, because my name's Anjela Church.
Yeah.
Whatever your experience has been with church has not been mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we walk around with our prejudices on our shoulders. People would see the name Anjela Church, and some from conservatives may look at me and say, how can you call yourself Anjela Church and you look like a regular person?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you don't look like you're ready to be beamed up. You know what I mean? Little do they know I'm ready to be beamed up.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Right. No, 100%.
Like, take me now.
Take me now, Lord.
You know what I mean? Shed your expectations. If you cannot listen with an open mind, I may not be the artist for you. And that's okay.
That's fine.
There's many artists out there.
That's fine.
But, you know, also buckle up. And get ready for the ride.
I was going to say, get ready, man. Get ready. I mentioned Spotify. I mentioned YouTube. How can we get hold of Anjela Church? Not literally, but where can we find... my phone number. Where can we find Anjela Church?
Yeah, so a lot of the publications that we're going to do on YouTube are going to go through Passionate Productions.
Okay, good.
So it's passionnetpro. You can find passionnetpro on Instagram.
Okay.
And that will have other publications as well as Anjela Church, but most of my stuff on YouTube is going to go through that channel because we're trying to keep a lot of the company things together. Okay. As far as Instagram goes, there's Anjela Church the Poet, all one word. Anjela is spelled with a J, Anjela, Church the Poet, and we're going to start uploading a lot more content.
Good.
Spotify, the project that we have out right now is called Parts of Her. We're going to be doing a lot more visuals and things like that for that project so that I can finally retire the projects as a whole. I've been, preaching this project for a while, and there's more coming. A lot has happened in my journey since 2016, 2017. I've moved to London. I'm on a journey, conquering addiction. I've united with my family. I feel full. I feel free. I'm on a whole different journey of grace with God. So I want that to be the new message. And so a lot of the older pieces are going to be wrapped up very soon. There's a lot more content coming with those ones. But also teasers for the new stuff that's coming up. I'm 30 now.
Wow.
So my art will be 32.
You still look 20. Well, I want to say that it's been a privilege and a pleasure to spend the time interviewing you. I think you've made it absolutely clear who Angie Church is. Be careful as you unwrap. I'm talking to the listener now. Who Angie Church is. But remember, there is a journey. And I hope that we have unwrapped a little bit for that listener to listen to. Thanks again for the time. And if you're asking the question, who is Angie Church? I hope you got your answer. God bless.
Thank you.